I don't know why. What's up, everybody? This is Bradley Benner with Semantic Mastery, and this is Hump Day Hangouts for August 23rd, 2017. We've got Chris and Hernan and Marco on with us today. Do not have Adam. He's preparing for the end of his life.
Yeah, something, a little event that he's holding.
Yeah, he's preparing for the end of his life. He's getting married. So, anyways, I'm going to go right on down the line and say hey hello to everybody. Hey, Chris, how are you?
Doing good. Excited to be here. And yeah, it's a really exciting week, but Marco will tell you guys more about that.
Yes, it is. Adam's commenting in Slack. I wonder if he heard me. Hernan's up next. What's up, Hernan?
Hey, guys, what's up? Yeah, super exciting news. Super excited for the upcoming days. It's really good to be here.
Awesome. And what about you, Marco?
Man, I'm working like a Budweiser Clydesdale, dude, pulling that fucking cart. Oh, sorry, I forgot this is PG. Sorry. Man, working hard. Trying to get this out. Working. Nah, man, it takes a lot of moving parts to get a product like this out. We have just a bunch of things that we have to coordinate, and things have to be right because we like to treat our people right. And so, but it should be ready on the 28th, or sorry, it will be ready on the 28th, no matter what. Great. Come hell or high water, it will be ready. It will be done.
Awesome.
It will be. Sorry, Bradley, but it will be an ongoing training, right, Marco? Like, if we can dive a little bit into that, it will be an ongoing training. You have a bunch of webinars set up for the upcoming weeks. Is that correct?
That's the great part. I mean, we listen to we actually listen to people who buy shit from us, right? We don't just sell our stuff and then run away and never answer any of our emails. Or we have a group that's been supported for 2 years in Facebook, right? We're in there. I'm in there every day answering questions, just back and forth with people, and yeah. So one of the things is that they'd like more training. They wanted to go more in depth into everything, another thing, and explore new venues and better ways to manipulate. And so we have right now a series of 12 webinars, which will be held every 2 weeks. They'll go on as long as they need to, so that we can get the information out. Whether it's an hour, whether it's 2 hours, they'll just go for however long they need to go, so that the information is delivered clearly and all the questions are answered. If people come up with new ideas or things that they would like to look at and explore and things like that, then we will just add to the list. I mean, I'm open to anything and everything with RYS. And the reason for this is because, as I was telling you guys, this is the last course that I'm ever going to do. I'm tired of people grabbing my stuff and calling it theirs. You see it all over. You see copycats, you see imitators, and just people who are just totally unethical. And I'm tired of that. And so now, from here on out, everything's going behind the user interface and software.
Software and services.
And that's it.
Yep.
That's it.
Well, there might be a private high-end meetup, but just me.
Yeah, but that's different. That's different because people at that level will have to, well, in this one too, you'll have to sign a document, non-disclosure, non-compete. And that's the way that you try to minimize people sharing and giving out your stuff as if it's theirs. They'll have to license it for anything that they do. I mean, it's just that simple. But yeah, I mean, if people are open for something high end, I have some way out stuff to share.
Yeah, the potent stuff, don't share it, man. It's too powerful to be out there on the internet. Behind closed doors, we keep that to ourselves for now.
Keep it in-house.
Give it out.
All right. So I better stop talking, man. Let's go.
All right, let's do it. Yeah, I'm pretty excited about the launch as well, because Marco's, the last time was 2 years ago, and I don't know why my video is blurring, but anyways, it's still effective 2 years later, which is crazy. So I'm really curious. I haven't even seen what's in the new version. So you guys are you guys are all going to see it the same time I do, really. I mean, Marco said I could have access to it between now and Monday, but I mean, that was literally just like green lighted today, right? Because we just got all the videos up. So anyways, all right, we're going to get into questions, guys. We got quite a few. So let's jump into it. All right, let me know when you guys can see my screen.
We can see it.
Okay, cool. Okay.
You have the cameraman on? Sorry, Bradley.
Yeah, I just took care of that.
Okay, cool.
Mel Bell, she says, hey guys, could you please explain what IP I should log into my PBNs with? I get the whole hosting in different companies and everything, but I'm still logging into them to work from the same computer. How do I work around that? All right, there's a couple things. Now, I haven't looked into this in at least 2 years, Mel. So you'll have to confirm this, but as of 2 years ago, one of the easiest ways to solve the problem was to do it from Firefox or another browser outside of Chrome, other than Chrome, I mean. And also to use a plugin, if you're talking about WordPress sites, there's a plugin that you can use called Remove Google Fonts References. We can go look it up real quick. But yeah, I have very few PBNs right now because I let most of them expire. I just don't use them anymore. So, you know, it's not something that I really worry about too much anymore. But when I had a large PBN and I was managing, you know, hundreds of sites, that was back a couple years ago. And this was one of the ways that I would prevent or, you know, reduce the chance of leaving a footprint from always logging in from the same IP, right? Which is to remove the Google Fonts references from, because by default, Google Fonts are part of WordPress code. And so by logging in with Google code on the site, it would still, you're basically giving Google access to the IP that's logged into that WordPress site. And so by removing that and using a web browser outside, you know, other than Chrome, and also making sure that, like, for example, because there's, and we cover this kind of stuff inside the Syndication Academy, but if you have your default search engine in Firefox, for example, is Chrome, then Google is still seeing, or excuse me, your default search engine as Google in Firefox, then Google is still seeing pretty much what you're doing through the Firefox browser, because they have their search engine and that search bar is sitting right on top of the browser, if that makes sense. So what I would do is always make sure, and again, we cover this in Syndication Academy, but I would make sure that Bing or Yahoo or something else was selected as the search engine, the default search engine for Firefox. And then for every WordPress site, I would do the Remove Google Fonts References plugin. This is it here. And by doing that, you basically remove any Google Fonts from the WordPress files on the site, and that supposedly, and again, 2 years ago it worked. I haven't tested any of that stuff in at least 2 years now, so I would confirm all of that. Maybe Marco or Chris or somebody can comment on this. You guys think that would still work?
Yes, that still works. So what I do is I use like a separate IP, and I use Firefox to go, and I have a separate user profile in the Firefox to go. So I have multiple Firefox to go versions, each has a separate user profile. And on top of that, I just swap the IPs between them. So that way, I don't have to worry about any cookie interferences or any other issues that might be like anything cached in the browser or whatever. And everything is always clean on every Firefox to go.
All right. And so, yeah, I mean, that works. That would work as well. So thank you for that, Chris. But what I was mentioning, or like I've got it on Google right now, but what I do, if you look, my default engine is Bing in Firefox. And so basically, you know, you can change your default search engine in your Firefox settings, and then, you know, again, remove Google Fonts references, and then you can log in to the WordPress sites from the Firefox. You know, make sure you clear your history. So clear recent history, browsing. You know, make sure that you basically walk through the steps that we cover inside of Syndication Academy for covering footprints, or for reducing footprints, anyways. That's pretty much the best advice I can give you for working with PBNs, other than having just a rack of IPs, which really isn't economical. Okay, good question though.
Could I add one little piece to that?
Oh, Roman's here. What's up, buddy? You snuck in late.
Yeah, sorry, I was preoccupied for a moment.
You were tardy.
I'm sorry. One thing I would also mention as well when you're doing the whole PBN thing is, be very careful about what email you put into your WordPress into your WordPress platform, because when if you use the same email, it's going to modify your user settings, and that user setting can display on posts. So it'll pull back, for instance, like your Gravatar image if you use your regular account and you have a Gravatar set up. Little things like that, if you're not careful, can also leave footprints behind. So it can tie the same image back through all your PBNs. So that's just another area that they can also look at.
Very good. Thanks, Roman.
Mm-hmm.
He was worth the wait. Hi, heroes. He says, I need your guidance here. I have a main domain and a subdomain. Now, subdomain give rel canonical to main domain silo pages. And every post of subdomain is mirrored in a G site. That is all posts replicated on G site. And G site has no connection to main domain whatsoever. So in this scenario, will main domain rank above G site and subdomain for targeted key terms or not? Does this hold any power? I'm onto it, but I need your guidance. Well, I don't know if you know, it really depends. Will the main domain outrank the G site? I don't know. Honestly, I really don't know. Can you, one of you guys give some insight on that? I mean, typically, unless a G site, one of the reasons we use G sites, guys, is because they're Google sites, right? So you're piggybacking on the authority of Google, and it's easier to rank those typically than it is a brand new WordPress or a brand new domain that you've just set up WordPress on or whatever. Usually that's the case. So if you are mirroring or basically republishing posts from your blog over to your G site, and then the G site, you can't canonicalize those URLs to your main site, right? You can't do that. At least as far as I know, you can't. But if that's the case, there's a chance that the G site's going to outrank the original until you get your original site to a point where the authority is such that Google ranks it higher. But at least initially, it seems to me, my assumption would be that the Google site would outrank the normal, or your domain if it's a relatively new site or a relatively weak site. What do you guys say?
Yeah, I will leave Roman and Marco chime in on this one because they are definitely more knowledgeable than I am. But like, if everything else stays the same, I would say like a parasite like G site or YouTube video, you're piggybacking on all of that authority, So it would make sense. So right off the bat, a G site would or could potentially outrank the website. Now, at some point, you want your website ranking higher for at least for branded terms, right? So if you're looking, for example, for AMCO site, like that brand, you want your website ranking higher. In any case, since you control the market at that point, you control the traffic flow, and everything can be used to point traffic back to your website, if that makes sense.
Yeah. One thing I would say is in rereading the question while Hernan was talking just now, is he says that he posts the blog posts on the subdomain. The subdomain the URLs for the posts are canonicalized to the main domain silo pages, and then he's mirroring the post, basically republishing the same posts on a G site. So in that situation, what I would do, and again, I haven't tested this method either, so I don't know without testing, but my assumption would be that the only thing that you could do really for the G site would be to place a link saying, this article originally published on, and then link back to the subdomain post, the original post on the subdomain, right? So that way you're passing juice from the G site to the subdomain post URL, which is then canonicalized to the main domain silo pages. Does that make sense? So essentially you're doing like a 3-step juice push, if that makes sense, because it's going from the G site initially to the original post URL, which is on the subdomain, which is then canonicalized to the silo page on the main domain. Again, that doesn't necessarily mean the main domain is going to outrank the G site. It should at some point once the authority level is there, but that's not a configuration I've ever tested with. Any other comments, guys?
No, I haven't tested it. We're concentrating on G sites. Their ranking power is amazing, and the more that we do with them, the better they rank. But there is something that can be done. but that's not being revealed until RYS Academy Reloaded. Sorry.
I think there needs to be a little bit more information for me to really answer this question, because I'm curious as to a few other pieces of information to really be able to answer this yes or no. But yeah, I can't really provide too much more than that. It's I would assume, since there's 4 of them powering up one, that the money site does have a good chance at pushing past it, but it's hard to say. It depends on the specifics of the configuration.
Yeah, except that the G site will siphon juice back, because that's a do follow link. So whatever you're pushing over to the subdomain it'll pull right back. I mean, they're really good about doing that.
Yeah,
it's over 2 years of testing with G sites, and they're amazing. Google is amazing at pulling whatever trust authority or juice they can from everywhere that it's connected to.
Okay, Ivan's up. He says, "Hey guys, when you publish a news," so I'm assuming like one of those posts from your Google My Business dashboard, it says it stays visible for 7 days, but I noticed that it's possible to share the link to your social accounts with a Google modifier. Do you think that this link will be unusable over the 7 days period? Well, yes, they do expire. I haven't tested this myself yet. I was introduced to it recently. I can't go into too far details because, again, this is something covered next week in RYS Reloaded. But I know that the share URLs, you can probably do some pretty ninja stuff with them. I don't know if when that news post expires, if that URL expires as well, or if that post is basically like archived and it can still be seen from that URL. Do one of you guys know yet?
Well, he's using the Google shortener, and those do not expire.
No. But what I'm saying is the post from the Google My Business dashboard, they also have a share URL.
Right.
So, but I know that those expire, but you can go in, because the conversation I had with the person that introduced me to this, he said that he's got a post up that's been up now for weeks or even months, because he just goes in and modifies or changes the expiration date. So like, before the 7 days is up, he goes in.
We don't want to give away too much.
Well, that's what I'm saying. But I'm saying, as far as like when that post actually expires, if you allow it to expire, is that URL still visitable? Like, can it still be visited, or is it like just gone? Do we know that?
Well, I think you would have to check with the Google shortener, since that's what he's sharing it with, to see whether he's getting a 404 to the origin or what he's getting. This is something that needs to be tested.
Yeah.
I am not. I can't answer. Again, this is one of those. I can't answer that. Do it. Check after 7 days. Check that Google shortened link and see if it 404s or if it's still alive. It's that simple. Test it.
Yeah, that's what I would do. And as far as, like I said, you can continue to, but that's very, that's part of the reason I haven't started playing with this yet, guys, is because I don't want to have to go in every 7 days and modify the post dates or whatever. So, that's part of the reason I haven't played with it, because it just seems like a manual process at the moment. But I would test that, Ivan. Do exactly what Marco said, and just do a test post on a test, or on something, and allow it to expire and see what happens. See if you can go visit the URL if it still can be viewed, in which case I would say, yeah, of course, you can do a lot of stuff with it. But if it actually expires and it's, shows a 404 or, not found or whatever, then no. I mean, without having to go in and manually update it all the time, you wouldn't be able to, do much with it. So can we use this link in some kind of press release? Sure, you could. But again, if it does expire and goes dead, then to me, that would be kind of a wasted effort. The only way I would do it is if there was a way to keep it alive indefinitely, or at least for an extended period of time, if that makes sense. Okay. But I know there's some opportunity there, guys. Like, I don't know if you guys know this, but I do, because we run most of our webinars and everything through Google Events and Google Plus, and the new Google Plus is horrid. I hate it. It's awful. And now they've even pulled events out of the Google Plus dashboard. The menu there, you can't even find events anymore in the Google Plus menu, and it sucks, because it's becoming difficult for us to even start a webinar now. So we're looking at changing platforms again. Unfortunately, we may still use the Hangout platform, but at least we may be changing from Google Events pages to something else, because this is I think Google is finally really this time they mean it. Apparently, what did Marcus say? They're taking Google Plus out to pasture. So I think they're literally killing it off. And probably because it's so terrible, the new version. I don't know why they had to go and fix it, so to speak, but it is what it is. All right, Jay Turner's up. He says, what's your best suggestion? Amazon, Cloudflare, etc., to host many domains as one can with as much IP diversity as possible? Well, I mean, that you can use Amazon like Route 53 and Cloudflare and stuff like that, and you'll have a range of IPs that you can get to mask your original or originating IP, right? Which would be wherever it's hosted. But other than like going out and purchasing, A and B class hosting accounts somewhere, there's not really. I mean, you're still limited with like Amazon and Cloudflare. I mean, look, guys, there's other third-party DNS applications out there that you can use, or DNS services that you can use, right? So it's not just Amazon, Route 53, and Cloudflare. There's other ones as well. You just got to go look for them, and then you can use some of those, but you got to be real careful. Even so, again, guys, I don't suggest spending a lot of time building PBNs, but if you guys are going to do it anyways, you got to take into account a ton of things, like what Roman just said was something that, I never really worried about a few years ago, but I'm sure that's a footprint issue now. Gravatar images, the email that you use for registering or notifications for the WordPress sites, that kind of stuff. That's number one. Number two, as far as the hosting, we know from vast, from some of the stuff we've done with SerpSpace and Video Powerhouse and things like that, having a ton of hosting accounts is a pain in the ass too. And if you go with shitty, cheap SEO hosting accounts, they're already flagged. Those IPs, for the most part, are basically been flagged or put into a bucket of shitty PBN SEO type hosting. So, and C class is no longer good enough. That's no longer effective enough. It has to be A and B class. And there's just a ton of things that can go, cause problems with PBNs and stuff. And that's part of the reason I got away from doing them, because they're just too much damn hassle to maintain. And it's getting harder and harder to hide footprints. Roman, you're probably the one that can speak most on this. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it really can become a really technical subject, but just think about it like this. The main goal of what you're trying to do is blend, really, at the end of the day, your PBNs. You're trying to blend in with what everybody else has. So if you have some cloud, you have some of this, some of that, you're going to achieve what your goal. I mean, when it comes to scalability, that's a totally different ballgame. If you're trying to host up hundreds and hundreds or thousands of sites, then you're going to have to come up with enterprise level solutions, and that takes time, and you're going to need to know all the technical pieces to do that.
Yeah,
because you've got a lot bigger risks involved with that. The more you have, the bigger it is. But it's, I mean, really, just at the end of the day, it's blending. That should be your goal in mind. So, get some from cloud providers, go get some from shared, get some from wherever you can, anywhere that is going to be stable, as in the sites stay up.
Right.
Outside of that, I wouldn't worry too much. I would pay attention to the IPs that you're getting specifically, and I would pay attention to your neighborhoods. And what I mean by neighborhoods is go see the other sites that are hosted on your same IP. Yeah. Because I promise you that IP that you're purchasing, you're not the only one on it.
Yeah, and that's part of what I was getting at earlier, was the fact that, I know so many SEOs that want to go out and buy SEO hosting, but that's what every other SEO, mediocre SEO does, right? And so there's a ton of shitty, like plain PBN blogs on those sites, which is obvious. And so if you do a neighborhood check on those IPs that you get assigned from your PBN hosting company, you'll see there's a ton that, first of all, those IPs are way overstacked with sites, because those SEO hosts know that those are PBN sites that aren't supposed to receive any traffic, really. They just don't generate any traffic for the most part. So they way overload the IPs with sites, so that if any one or a handful of the sites all of a sudden do start getting traffic, it basically suspends all the other sites won't load. Like it overloads the bandwidth, and all of a sudden, like Roman just mentioned, all of your sites start going down. And that's one of the hugest things, guys. If you got a ton of sites that are linking back to your money sites, that are constantly going down, like the servers are going down because they're overloaded IPs, the bandwidth issues, all that kind of stuff, that's a clear indication of bad links as well. So that's something else. Like he just mentioned, you know, going with cheap hosts because you think, oh, well, look, I need the IP diversity. I don't care if it's a cheap host. Well, no, that's not true, because if the sites, first of all, are hosted, they're kind of associated with all these other riffraff, all the other crappy PBN sites on that same IP. That's a bad signal. And then the bad signal is constantly the sites going down. And so that's something I recommend that you try to avoid that if possible.
The very first domains that I had ever lost to Google, because I had always been extremely clean about keeping up with them, were due to bad neighborhoods. Somebody else got hit on the same IPs and caused me to lose my sites as well. And it was just a small cluster of them, but that's just to give you an idea. Like, that is built into their automated algorithms. So the neighborhoods, so that piece, and you know, keeping your IPs too close together, those two pieces will get you auto sweeped. The rest of it, it's a bit more complex.
Yeah, I think the best way to handle something like that, Jay, if you're insistent upon using PBNs, regardless, and then I would say, you know, one of the things you could do is get your own server, your own dedicated server, and you know, have some VPSs set up. Get various, you know, you can have just your own dedicated IP so that it's clean, and then you can use a lot of DNS services, to as many as you can find, anyways, to kind of try to mask some of your IPs to give you some IP diversity. But there's not really a whole lot that I would say about. I just personally, I got away from building PBNs because it's just too much hassle, and we're able to produce results without them now. So that's my thoughts. Related, I have a local biz client who has 6 sites. Each is a location, not yet merged and siloed. I'd like to merge and silo, but I'm hesitant because some lesser locations or mailboxes at risk of shutdown. I'd like to mitigate risk here. If one were shut down by Big G, if the site were merged and siloed, could that shut down and jeopardize the entire site? Yes, Jay. Don't do that, especially if you're using mailboxes for some of the locations. I suggest that you use subdomains. So you put up a root domain for the brand, and then you use subdomains with the city names as the subdomains, or whatever you want. Typically, I just use the city name as the subdomain, and I would put each location on its own subdomain. And the reason so you're still managing 6 sites, then in fact, you're managing 7, but the 7th site, which would be the root domain, could literally just be a one-page HTML site. That's what I'm doing with mine now. I don't even put WordPress on the root domain anymore. I just put an HTML site up, page up, and that's it. And then everything else is all WordPress on subdomains for multi-location businesses that I manage, or lead gen sites, right? And I do that intentionally because, you know, exactly what you just mentioned. If any one of those, if I put everything under the root domain in silos, yeah, that's great. It makes it easier to manage. It's logical to do that. But if you're doing anything black hat whatsoever, and remember, guys, if you build a single link manually to a site, you're doing black hat stuff, right? So if you're doing anything that Google deems is not kosher, then you run the risk of getting one of your locations slapped. And if it's on the root domain, it's going to pull your whole site down. So I recommend that you mitigate that by always using subdomains, because if a subdomain gets slapped, it should stay, you know, specific to that subdomain, the penalty. It shouldn't affect the root or the other subdomains. Okay. All right. Next, Mohammed says, oh, by the way, Jay, if you're planning on building, you know, PBNs to link to these sites, you absolutely want to separate them. So I don't mean separate domains. I prefer to have everything on subdomains so that they're all still tied together, and the domain authority, that's not a metric I care about, guys. And I don't mean Moz domain authority. I just mean the authority of the domain itself actually rises with each subsequent subdomain that you add. So the overall domain builds an authority so that every time you add an additional subdomain, a new location, it's going to borrow from some of the authority that has accumulated from all of the subdomains and the root domain itself. Does that make sense? So it's logical to have everything on subdomains because they all benefit from each other, but at the same time, they're all considered separate sites. If that makes sense.
Yeah, so, completely. As evidence of that, that's why parasite pages work.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. Okay, Mohammed's up. He says, hey, guys, what do you think of using Data Highlighter from Google Webmaster Tools to improve search appearance? I currently use Project Supremacy plugin. for all schema-related tasks, but it's missing article schema, which the highlighter has, or is article schema not in the plugin because it's useless? I can't speak about that plugin at all. I don't use it, so I honestly I have no idea. I don't use that plugin at all. I still do all my structured data stuff manually, guys. I prefer to do it that way. And one of our mastermind members, who's like a schema savant, that's what I called him, a schema savant, Brian Rodden, he does all his stuff manually as well. So I suggest that's what you do. Yeah, I personally don't like the plugins, but
yeah, I would say get a consulting session with Ryan if you want to know more about that, because you're not going to find a better person.
That's right. Ryan Rodden, he's really, really, really good at the schema stuff, probably the best that we know. So I would definitely reach out to him, and he does consulting, and he'll write structured data code for you and everything. You can hire him for all that kind of stuff. So I would reach out to him, Mohammed, for sure. He's not part of our team, but he is a mastermind member. So as far as using the data highlighter, I haven't played with it much, so I don't know how good it is. Any of you guys got comments on that?
I would say it's pretty good. I would say it's like it will help you pinpoint. It's not bulletproof, but it will help you pinpoint where the data is or what are you actually missing. So I would say it's a graphical representation. It's a tool, right? So I would say it's pretty cool.
Okay. Marco, any experience with that?
No, don't use it.
Okay. All right, number 2, I mentioned last week that I have a client's G+ page posting from a rank feeder feed and Twitter. However, Twitter is so busy that my buffer is always full and it can't take in my syndicated posts or my rank feeder posts. Is this bad, or is this important thing, the G+ page activity? No, I would throttle your Twitter feed then, your Twitter triggers or whatever that you're using. I would, if you're using rank feeder, I would make that my primary content engine for the Google Plus posts, if that makes sense, because your rank feeder you have more control over than the Twitter triggers. And with the Twitter triggers, with using the advanced search options in in Twitter, you can figure out the best combination of the search whatever search you're using in the applet inside of IFTTT to cause the triggering of the pulling the Twitter and then repost, sending it to buffer, for example. That's because that's what it does. It doesn't post automatically to Google Plus. It sends it to buffer, and then buffer posts to Google Plus. What I found is, luckily, a few of the projects that I've set up using that method, I've been able to, just by playing around with different search operators, or search strings, I should say, inside of the Twitter advanced search, I've been able to find a relatively not an overactive search string that causes too many tweets to be added, because personally, I don't care about over posting on the Google Plus pages anymore, because Google Plus now sucks and it's a ghost town. Nobody goes to Google Plus anymore because it's just so terrible. But and so I don't think anybody even sees the Google Plus pages anymore. But as far as if you're not able to get your rank feeder post push out because your queue is always full inside of buffer because of the tweets, I would reduce the tweets. I would change your search string, play around with it, and using Twitter advanced search to find, and just go scroll through the results when you try different search strings. Look at the results that it pulls back, so the tweet results, right? And look, if you're getting 20, 30 tweets per day or more, then that's a bit excessive in my opinion. So I try to find a balance of where, I'm doing anywhere between, 1 to 10 or 15 tweets per day. And again, it's just a matter of playing with that search string until you find the right mix. If that makes sense. But I would make sure that the rank feeder feed is the primary content source for that, because you have more control over that. Okay. On August 7th, I ordered 20 instant map embeds from SearchSpace. How long should I wait to order more if there's a limit beyond the number of credits? Well, I don't recommend doing instant map embeds, guys. You can, don't get me wrong. 20 is not bad. 20 is not bad. But I always do, everything on drips schedules, guys. So and I usually always just start off, and I've mentioned this many times before, Mohammed, but so this may benefit you now as well. But I always do 50 map embeds, but I do it dripped out over 7 or 14 days. I do the same with the video powerhouse posts. So either video posts or map posts, I usually do 7 to 14 days, and I typically always just start off with 50. I do order secondary embeds. I select the proper categories, and then you know, run it, and then I go back in a few weeks and check on results, and then I'll go you know, submit another embed blast if I need to. But I like to kind of have it drip out so that it's not instant. Now, 20 instant map embeds, I don't think it's going to be an issue.
Yeah,
but go ahead.
I don't think so either. I don't think it's an issue. What he needs to do is go check and see if it started dancing. If it didn't do anything, then just you can hit it with more map embeds. But just make sure you drip it, because it's just totally unnatural to pop up in 20 different places all of a sudden.
That's correct. I agree with that 100%. Okay, next, Columbia. She says, what are the best ways to feed juice to a client site if they insist on having you promote their site, but you still want to keep as much control over the authority as possible? Well, Columbia, like, that question alone means that there's obviously a, and I'm not saying this in any derogatory way, but there's a breakdown in your communication with your client, because their client should not be aware of the fact that you've been trying to keep control over link juice, period. That conversation should never be had. That's not something that, like, I've never had to have that conversation with the client, because I've always been really, really careful about how I present the work that I do, so that that's not an issue. It's not a conversation that comes up. Because in all reality, the client, you know, for example, I talk about cloning a site and then, you know, doing 301 redirects for the cloned site onto my domain. And then I do like off-page link building to my own domain, because it's all 301 redirected to the client site. But if I'm doing content marketing for the client, right? So I'm blogging, which we do a lot of that. That's our primary service. Our primary monthly service is content marketing now, because we do all the front end SEO work. It only takes us, you know, 2-3 months, whatever, to get results for the client. Once the client's ranked, then it's just a matter of maintaining that rankings, which is typically done with just content marketing and the Syndication Academy method. And that's it. That's all that it really requires. Every now and then I'll have to do, you know, some citation building or some press releases and things like that. But typically once they rank, it's just content marketing. So when it comes to that, and this question's come up many, many times as well, but how do you keep control over it when you're doing content marketing? You don't. You don't. You post content to their blog, which gets syndicated out to their branded network, which links directly back to their money site. And that's what it should be. That's what they're paying for. You know what I mean? As far as the off-page linking stuff, being able to, you know, try to maintain as much juice as possible. You know, if I'm doing additional inbound linking, so I'm building links to, like, outside of syndication networks, press releases is a good example. I'll use the 301 redirects in the press releases, because they redirect to the client's domain anyways, right? But then I can always pull that redirect if I need to and point or reroute the redirect to another destination if needed to, if the client decides that they don't need me anymore. But that only counts on, you know, like in context links that are on third-party sites that aren't syndication, or they aren't citations, or they aren't part of an NAP, like in the press release itself. My point is, anytime like if you're building citations as another example, right? So NAP is listed, name, address, phone number, and web address. You can't use a redirect domain there either, because you'll screw up your NAP data, right? You'll have inconsistent details out there on the web. So that'll actually hurt your rankings. So my point is, there are certain things that you have to build links. You have to build them or you know, complete the tasks pointing directly to the client's domain. And that's perfectly acceptable. Even though I try to maintain as much control as possible, I can only do it where it makes sense to do so, and where I can kind of hide the fact that I'm doing it. And when I say hide, it's not that I'm trying to keep it from the client, but it's, they don't need to know that. You know, they don't need to know what I'm doing, as long as I'm providing results, right? Go ahead.
You're the expert. You're the expert at the end of the day. Everything that you have is proprietary. That's
right.
The end of the conversation. That's where it needs to start and where it needs to end.
That's right.
If you have to get into any technical detail, they're not going to understand any of it, and it's going to waste your time and confuse them, and it's not going to be the direction that you want to go.
It's like if you're working with a roofer and all of a sudden you start questioning their roofing practices, and, oh, well, you know, why aren't you laying the shingles this way? And why don't you do flashing that way? And like the roofing client of yours would tell you to go shit in your hat. You know what I mean? Like, really. And they rightly so. So why is it that our clients, and I know because I get these kind of questions too, Columbia, but why is it that our clients think that they can ask us to reveal all of our secrets and our methods, and that we're just going to freely share it with them? You know what I mean? So again, it's a conversation I try not to have. at any case. And if that conversation came up, there was obviously a there was somewhere in something that you said or did that revealed that strategy, and that was a mistake. And again, Columbia, it's perfectly acceptable. We all make mistakes, there's no doubt. But I would recommend going forward that you try to keep that as close to the chest as possible.
Yeah, where everything is branded. For what I like to do is, if it's branded, it should belong to the client.
That's correct.
At the end of the day, right? But if it's not branded, it should belong to you. That's
correct. Totally agree. All right, she says, for example, using the RSS authority approach, it seems you can keep that control. Am I correct about that? Yep, you can do that to a degree. There's no doubt. Could you explain and hopefully other methods? Thank you. Yeah, so just like Roman said, that's exactly right. Any type of citation, any type of syndication from their blog, press releases, or anywhere where NAP is mentioned as part of the NAP. Now, if you're doing contextual links or anchor text links from within the content of that's posted on third-party sites, then you can use redirect URLs there. There's no doubt. Okay. Okay, next, Sky says, what are your thoughts on interlinking guest posts on different external websites that all contain links back to a money website? I think G can easily detect this type of linking pattern, but not sure if they have a filter in place to punish this sort of activity. My aim is to really get more traffic and activity on the backlinks. We do this with press releases and social rings. So I assume it's fine, but I figured I would ask before I destroy somebody's money site. Okay, as far as I'm concerned, if they're guest posts from the same author, then it kind of makes, well, I don't know if they have to be from the same author. If they're the same author or they're the same topic, so the relevancy is there, it makes sense to me to be linking from one to the other. Because here's the thing, guys, a lot of authors will link to their other content, even if it's not 100% related. They'll link to their own content on other, if they and remember, guys, good writers are always able to find a way to create an angle of connection between the two unrelated things. And you see that a lot in blogs, like SEO blogs, for example. And I don't mean like PBNs. I mean like search engine land and all that kind of stuff, where you'll see links sprinkled throughout all the content, right? And a lot of the times they're linking to their own content. And that's the reason why, is because it helps to boost their content. They're basically boosting their own ecosystem. But likewise, if it's related, then it would if it's relevant, it's related content, then it would make all sense to link to that as well. So in my opinion, that's perfectly legit to do. But I don't do a lot of guest postings, so I'm not sure. Does anybody have any?
Yeah, if I may, before he goes and destroys and bombs somebody's money site, why don't you go and test?
Yes.
Very simply, you take this outside of something that matters. You isolate the single thing that you want to test. This way, when now I'm getting into a testing methodology, which I shouldn't even give away. But you need to isolate the variable that you're testing for, so that you go and you do this one thing to whatever it is that you don't care about. And you need different things that you don't care about so you can test the variable. And so if you see that it tanks from what you've set up, then you don't want to do it to money site, because the same thing's going to happen. You try to you replicate it. If you replicate the tanking, then you definitely know that's something that you don't want to do. But the very first thing that you need to do is set up the environment to test and make sure that this either works or doesn't. And that's right now. Google can decide tomorrow that this doesn't work anymore, that we don't want this anymore, and they start penalizing it. And so, I mean, right now, you go, you test it. If it works, you use it. And if it doesn't, then you just go and find something else to manipulate.
There you go.
Yep, there's patterns out there that are going to work. I can tell you that. View things as internal and external. That's another hint towards your testing. Internal links and external links, in terms of linking patterns, aren't the same. So take a look at that and play around with that.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Next up, where do you recommend getting safe links, and in your experience, how are they working out? All right. Whenever I used to use safe links, which I did a lot, I used them very heavily for quite some time. I would always buy them from what the hell was the name of that safe link provider? I used to use. I'd have to find them now, but I bought them in bulk, so it was rather expensive because I'd buy, I'd buy packages of, that cost $300 per month, but it would give me, 200 SAPE links or whatever, that kind of stuff. And they worked really, really well. Again, I got away from all the traditional link building stuff, guys. We just don't need to. We're able to produce results without it, using the methods that we've kind of developed on our own, right? So SAPE links, as far as I know, they still work, but I haven't been using them now for about 2 years. I stopped using SAPE links about the same time I stopped building PBNs, and stopped using PBNs as a primary ranking strategy. So I know that they used to work. I can't really speak about the efficacy of them today because I don't really use them. I'm assuming that they work because, as Marco always talks about, if a link is powerful enough, it will push rankings, whether it's related or not. But it has to be particularly powerful if that's the case. And if you can get them where they're relevant, like they're coming from relevant sites, related type content sites, then that's even better. Now I know Hernan was buying links manually, so he was going to the sape.ru or anyone something like that, going to the different Russian link providers and purchasing them direct himself, because you can get them for dirt cheap that way. It just requires research on your part. And personally, I needed enough of them that I didn't want to go through and do it manually, so I just hired a third party to do it for me, if that makes sense. Comments, guys?
Yeah, it was, I mean, once you had the process,
your audio is terrible, dude.
How about now? It's better?
There you go. There you go.
Yeah, sorry. What I was saying is that once you had the process, I think I recorded a video back in the day to the mastermind students. But honestly, I haven't used SAPE in a while now, so I wouldn't know. As usual, back at that time when I recorded the video, I used to say that A, you point them to tier 1 properties, B, you use 301s, just in case. And right now, I would suggest even more so. You know what I mean? So, but it has been a while since I used SAPE, but they used to work really well, mostly to pump metrics, Yeah. But right now, I wouldn't know. So just make sure that you're not pointing them to anything that you deem worthy.
Well, I mean, I don't do it anymore, but I used to. I would point them direct to money sites. I would go through a 301 though, a redirect that I had control over. That way, switchbox SEO. That way, if anything happened, if all of a sudden I tanked because of a bad link, then I would remove the 301 redirect, and it just cuts it off just like that, or point it somewhere else. But again, anyways, I don't personally. It depends on what you're doing. I know in other markets you can get away with a lot spammier stuff. I just don't use them now. I just don't need to. But this is the provider that I used to. It's SEOlutions.biz. These guys are the ones that I bought all my SAPE links from for about 2 or 3 years. I spent a lot of money with these guys, but they always provided really good links. So, and I've dropped that link on the page. Next is question from Kata via support. How can I get more traffic to my videos? I'm able to get them ranked, but do not get many views. If any views to the videos, please advise. Well, if it's just views that you're looking for, just set up a simple YouTube ad, AdWords for video, right? And there's a few things you can do. If you're just looking for views, then you can set them up as an in-stream ad using whatever video it is that you have ranked or want ranked, and then select. It depends. If you're doing local stuff, if you're trying to rank for a local term, then it's super effective to set up an AdWords campaign for that video where you use that video as an in-stream video. So that's a pre-roll ad, one of those ads that play before the video that the searcher, the YouTube visitor wants to see. Your ad shows up first, right? You can get super localized with your IP, like your geographic targeting, so that the people that are watching the video that see your ad are all within a radius or within a specific geographic location, like a city or a county or a state or whatever. And that's super powerful for ranking videos locally, for local search terms, because you're getting the local relevancy, the local views from local IPs. Google and YouTube are tracking all of that, and it's a great signal for ranking videos for local terms. Also, you can do topical targeting, and you can do a what's called layered targeting, which is a mix of both topical and geographic targeting, location targeting, which is incredibly powerful. And I do that. That's kind of my secret sauce for ranking local videos is I do all the SEO stuff that we typically do, as well as the syndication networks and all that other stuff, Video Powerhouse, all the stuff that we typically do. But then I always end up, if needed, which usually within the first 30 days, I know whether or not it's going to need an AdWords campaign set up, but I'll set up an AdWords campaign and localize the geographic targeting, as well as add some topical layering on top of that. And then usually that's all it takes to push it. And then I just end up reducing my ad spend, my daily budget for, you know, I might set it at $1 or $1.50 per day to begin with, just to get some, you know, that initial view count started going. And then once I get, you'll usually start to see some movement with the video relatively quickly as far as rankings. And then once ranked, I usually back it down. First of all, start lowering the max cost per view down. Inside AdWords, it'll give you a average cost per view value, right? So let's say you got your max cost per view set at 15 or 20 cents to begin with. And I usually start around 20 or 25 cents for my average cost per view, or max cost per view. So I'll set it like 15 or 20, or I usually set between 20 and 25 cents. So then after, you know, a week or two, and I've got several hundred views, which are all the type of, they're all coming from IPs in the locations that I want, that kind of stuff, then it'll give me an average cost per view. And a lot of times the average cost per view might be, say, 13 cents, right? So then what I'll do is I'll start going in and I'll start backing it down from 25 cents max cost per view down to maybe 23, and then 21, and then 19. And then once I start to approach that average cost per view value, then I start decreasing my max cost per view bid by 1 penny at a time. So let's say I get to like 17 or 18 cents max cost per view, and the average cost per view, you'll start to see the average cost per view go down as well, which is kind of cool. And then so I'll just start backing it down 1 cent per day over the course of the next several days, and I'll get it down to, let's say, 10 cents per max cost per view. And you'll notice your average cost per view will invariably go to like 9 cents or 8 cents. And so just keep backing that down. And then I also back down my daily budget from, like, say, originally $1 or $1.50 down to like 50 cents. That way I'm still, I basically am training AdWords, that ad campaign, to still serve my ad, but for less cost per click, or cost per view, I should say. And also my budget goes down because I'm getting cheaper views, so I don't need as much budget. And then it's just a maintenance thing, right? So, you know, if you got 50 cents a day, guys, to maintain a site, a video ranking, that's $15 a month. That's totally worth it. So a lot of the video production companies that I do SEO, wholesale SEO stuff for, I charge them $100 per month per video for ranking. And I have AdWords campaigns set up for damn near every one of them. They might cost me $15 a month. So that comes right out of my $100 a month, but it helps to maintain those rankings to where I don't have to do a damn thing. That makes sense.
I have a question
that
I want to ask Kata or Kata. I'm not sure if it's a he or a she, but my question would be, what's your keyword research showing as far as traffic for these videos? It could be that you're targeting videos that just don't have the traffic to support the views. Yeah. I mean, you're getting rankings. How can you get rankings if there's tons of views for whatever niche you're in? It could be the video quality. It could be just a bunch of things. The thumbnail that you're using is not attractive enough. The titles, maybe there's a bunch of things that you need to do to get the person to click on that video and watch it. But YouTube people will usually watch a video if there's traffic for the video. Yeah. So my question is, what does your keyword and niche research show?
Yeah, that's true. Because if you can get it ranked and you're not getting views, I mean, there is an issue there that I would first work on that. I mean, your question made it sound like you just were looking for views, but so that's what I was trying to answer. But I agree with Marco. If you've got it ranked and it's not getting natural organic views, then it's either those keywords just aren't something that people are searching for, or there's a problem with the headline or the meta description or something, the title, the thumbnail image, something is causing them not to click on it. And you'd have to do some research to see if maybe the second or third ranked video, if they're getting views and you're not, then that's a clear indication that there's something wrong with the the thumbnail or the way it's displayed or something like that, if that makes sense. But if you notice that those videos, second and third place aren't getting views either, then it's probably the keyword, All right, we're almost out of time, guys. We don't have another webinar, so I can go another 5 minutes, but we are going to shut it down in 5 minutes. So Dan is up. Dan, it looks like you didn't get this question answered last week, so I wanted to make sure we got to this. How do we fix the error for local business that insinuates the @ type for business should be an image screenshot? Now, I haven't run into this. I know is that an actual error or just a warning? Because if it's an error, then yeah, it should be fixed. If it's just a warning, I just ignore warnings now because the structured data testing tool will throw warning messages all the time that are unfixable as far as I know. So I don't even care about warnings. But if it's an error, yes, I do try to fix those, but I haven't seen that. Have you guys seen that?
That looks really similar to the time when we had that problem where it was the quotation marks. They weren't the same throughout, and so I would look at the quotation marks, just drop it into a text file and make sure you just correct the quotation marks in a text file and load it back up and see what that does, because there's absolutely no reason why the value field for @ type should be image.
Yeah, Ryan.
So something in there's wrong. A comma. You have to really go through that. You have to get really anal with that, and I can't see it from the image, Dan. But isn't he still in our mastermind? Isn't Dan in our mastermind?
I don't know if he is. I would say definitely post in the mastermind about it, because I think Ryan would be able to comment on something like that. Because Ryan actually he in one of the mastermind webinars he went over this and showed how using the text editor on his Mac, I think it was, the quotation mark, so that was, wraps the value. The quotation mark was like an inverted quotation mark. Yep. And that's what caused an error message. And it said that he was banging his head against the wall trying to figure it out. I mean, he said that he couldn't figure it out, and then eventually found out that there was an inverted quotation mark that was just, I guess, unique to the text editor that he was using on Mac. And once he corrected that, which by the naked eye you couldn't tell there was any difference, but once he corrected that, then it solved that error code. And that's structured data is very much like that, where it could be, for example, when you save something in a text file, you can save it as UTF-8 or ANSI, that kind of stuff. Sometimes, depending on how the encoding was produced within the text file, could actually cause that kind of an error. Does that make sense? All right, so hopefully that helps, Dan. I would check that. What do you suggest? Display or in-stream ads for running video ads to help boost rankings for $1 a day, top of silo video URL? Well, again, it depends on what you're doing. If you're doing local stuff, I like to use in-stream because it forces the view from a local IP, whether they want to or not. When you do a display ad, an in-display ad, or a video discovery ad, I don't remember what they call it now, but those are the ones that are at the top of the search results, right? So those are like the ads that you place at the top of YouTube search. Those, somebody actually has to click on that. So you got to have a compelling title and a compelling thumbnail, right, for somebody to click on that, which means they have to be searching for that type of a term too. Whatever your targeting is, typically you're going to do keyword targeting for that, right? So they're going to have to be searching for that term and then see your ad and click on the ad in order for it to register as a view to help with the SEO of that video, if that makes sense. But when you do in-stream ads, basically they don't get a choice. They're going to, the view is still going to occur whether they click the skip ad button for, within 5 seconds or not. It doesn't matter. The view still registers. It just doesn't count as a paid view if they click the skip ad button within the first 5 seconds, but it still registers as an actual view from a local IP. So it really depends on what you're trying to do. I'm assuming, Dan, it's for local stuff, in which case I would say run the in-stream ad. You can do both. You can set up a campaign for in-display and for in-stream. The in-display campaign can very well bring you relevant, genuine traffic to your offers, because if somebody's actually searching for the keyword that you've targeted with that video and your video solves that problem, like suggest a roofer for somebody looking for roof repair issues, right, or how to fix roof repair issues, that may very well end up turning into a lead. But as far as strictly for an SEO strategy or method, I would say the in-stream ads is the better way to go. Okay, last part of this, and then we're wrapping it up, guys. It's 5 o'clock. And sorry to King Slayer and the rest of you guys. Sorry about that, guys, but we're not going to be able to get to them. So the last one is, if a domain has expired, will the Wayback Machine still give us an earlier date for expired websites to sacrifice the site structure and maybe use WP Twin to duplicate? I'm not sure what you mean by that. If the Wayback Machine, as far as I know, the Wayback Machine, the only thing you can do with that is go in and download the files as HTML. Every page, like if it's a WordPress site and archive.org, the Wayback Machine has indexed that site, right? And it's in their archives, their database. It's as HTML files, not a WordPress page. Does that make sense? So if you like using the HTML or the Wayback Machines downloaders, there's several of them now. Blue Chip Backlinks is the one that we always used. Then when you download that, it's going to come back as a HTML, zipped up HTML pages or HTML files in a zip drive. Okay, so I don't know how you would be able to use something like WP Twin on that, Dan. Does anybody else know what he's talking about? Okay. Okay, very good. Well, guys, we're going to wrap it up. Yeah, my Gainesville site, Dan, I haven't done anything with in over 2 years, and I really don't care to. That site's not producing revenue now because I let that one go, so I really don't care. But thanks, I appreciate that. But I'm not going to go fix it because it doesn't matter to me. Okay. All right, guys. I don't know. Everybody else dropped off, so I don't know what happened. But we'll see you guys.
I'm still here.
Next week. All right, cool. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Webinars this week, did we? We got Mastermind tomorrow for Mastermind members, but other than that, I think we're good. Okay, guys. We'll see y'all next week. Thanks.
All right, man. Bye.